Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Kings and Generals. This will be the third episode where we will be talking about Saiyan marketing, more specifically, the form differences between Super Saiyan 4 and Super Saiyan Blue. I am General Blue.
And I am King Cold, and we will step right into it today. So, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are aware, especially since Super's been out for close to 5 years now, or something like that. That if you go online, you'll see a ton. You'll probably see it if you follow any Dragon Ball media on like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. You'll see it in the comments at least once where someone talks about how Super Saiyan 4 is so cool and this form, it's the pinnacle and we should have went with this route. It's a different evolution path and all this added made up things for their favorite form. And I think it's a marketing thing that has started mainly back when ROF came out with the Xenoverse games in particular. I have an example for you as well. So there's a mission in Xenoverse where instead of going Super Saiyan Blue, Fu makes them turn Super Saiyan 4. And if you have Goku as your ally for the mission, they will actually have an argument with each other about who the strongest is. And to me, I think that's really funny because one thing I think Dragon Ball Heroes, both Universe games, and the Heroes anime, the promotional anime, has done recently, has deliberately left it ambiguous because they know people are going to have arguments about which form is the strongest form.
I think that what the different franchises try to do, or the different subsets of the franchise try to do, is they know it is a very heavy point of marketing because they have two forms that are completely independent from each other with completely different stories and substantial time gaps. So of course fans want some kind of answer as to which form is objectively better in this case.
I don't think we'll get an answer. Like Dragon Ball FighterZ, they had the whole push when Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta came out. They have so many dialogue lines that only diehard fans would understand. Like deliberately pointing out that Broly's new form, excuse me, is similar to Super Saiyan 4, and they're like, this is similar to us, and all this stuff. Or they'll have the dramatic finishes where it's like both Gogetas doing a Kamehameha, and both of them talking crap on the other form. And if you ever pull up the video and read the comments on those dramatic finishes for either or, it's like this huge war going on. Instead of people just realizing that they're deliberately making it sound like that just so you will buy the DLC for a character that's pre-existing in most other Dragon Ball games. I'm actually pretty sure FighterZ is the first game where you actually had to buy Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, so that just kind of proves this whole Saiyan marketing thing where they know how popular each of these forms have become with the growth of the internet and the popularity of Super.
That's definitely a valid point, and I think that Dragon Ball can kind of use that as a easy marketing trick in general. Like, the Saiyans and the different transformations are no doubt one of the easiest marketing forms, but I think that to a large extent they have been aware that discourse over, canon versus non-canon content has been prominent in the fan base for a long while. Even as early as, the infancy of YouTube in 2006 and 7, we had freaking Broly versus Cell or Broly versus Boo debates, and a lot of the video games would at least try to include dialogue of some characters that had at least remote relevance against each other. Freaking Tenkaichi 3 had unique dialogue between General Blue and Android 18 just for the sake of a joke, not because they ever interacted together. So I think that just experiencing that is kind of unique enough to see, in the sense that like fans will like to have different characters who never normally interact have an interaction. There was also, I think, a special mission in Raging Blast where, well, technically two. It was a fight between Gogeta and Vegito from, like, Buu Saga, but in each fight you play as each of them, and they each have, like, special dialogue for when they win, or whatever the case, just talking about the pros and cons of each form.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing a video where, like, Gogeta is talking to Vegito, and this is before Super. So he's like, "How are you gonna attend to our wives?" And he's just like, I don't know." But yeah, I never thought. I never thought about that. 'Cause I've been so focused on just Blue and 4, or 4 and Blue, whatever you want to call them. Just because they've been. It's kind of weird how long this has been going on without any official statement. Because some shows and stuff would do official statements, like let me think of one. Actually, Dragon Ball, ironically enough, has some official statements. You know, when Vegeta's darker blue form came out in Tournament of Power, everybody's like, "Oh, how strong is it? How strong is it?" And they were like, "Oh, it's like the equivalent of Goku's max power Kaioken Blue." And I've been expecting that for Super Saiyan 4 V Blue for a while, and it hasn't happened. And I think that's not being done purposely, especially with the Heroes video game and promotional anime now. We've had a lot of episodes where Super Saiyan 4 and Blue will fight different opponents, or fight the same opponent, but neither one seems to be more effective than the other, with the exception of the Black Janemba episode, which was really weird. Like, dialogue-wise, it's pretty minimalist, because it's just an 8-minute ad for a card. But they have like this little line with one of the characters where he looks at one of the Gokus, he's like, "Goku, do that thing you did against the Shadow Dragons." And they have Goku and Vegeta in the middle. Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta in the middle, my bad. And then they have Goku Blue and Vegeta, and then Super Saiyan God Trunks give them energy, so that way they level up their Super Saiyan 4. And I was like, what the hell? That was such a weird episode, but I noticed it just started this whole even further rabbit hole. People were like, this is them confirming it. I'm like, nah, they're just fanning the flames for a new form. To be fair, the card looked really cool, but I guess it worked.
That was definitely more just a theatrical move for promotion's sake, and I mean, for goodness sakes, the first episode of the Heroes anime was like a minute-and-a-half scuffle between Blue and 4, where it's like, oh, our attack's tied, but we're both holding back, so obviously we're gonna keep doing this for most of the rest of the show.
Yeah, and Heroes, what's weird is, I think Heroes has been around for 9 years now, because I do have two Goku, like, I do have a model of Goku and Vegeta from Heroes that say 9th anniversary edition. And it's weird, like, before Battle of Gods, I'm willing to bet most of the stuff from Heroes you would see as a offshoot animation that has the song playing over it, and nobody knows what it is. It would be like that weird YouTube recommendation where it's like Vegito and Super Saiyan fighting Boo, Bojack, Cell, and Frieza, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? But lately, I think, especially with the Super anime ending, Heroes has been keeping people talking about Dragon Ball, and mostly about just that whole debate still, Super Saiyan 4 versus Blue. Because, like, let's look at the reveal of Super Saiyan 4. Let's not include, like, any narrative stuff or that. Just, like, the episode it debuted, the baby arc. It had this big, especially if you watch it in the Japanese, it's got this big orchestral version of the soundtrack. He transforms into the Great Ape, and then with Pam showing him a picture of them, he shrinks down and is an adult again in this new shiny form. And I think in the ROF movie, Blue just gets squatted out with no hint of what the form is supposed to be at the time.
Yeah, I do remember, like in both cases, they were heavily teased in promotional material. I can't really attest to how GT was promoted in Japan when it first came out, like how Super Saiyan 4 was promoted when GT was first coming out, but I know that as soon as people saw images of Super Saiyan Blue Goku before Revival of Frieza came out, everyone was like making fan art, making jokes about it, and there were even like discussions about which form would be stronger just based off of literal trailer dialogue. So people immediately take to new forms and try to figure out what the context is, what the purpose is. And I do think that in a sense, Heroes is a good way of like at least giving an environment for these forms to just kind of mess around. Like, we shouldn't treat it as being primary continuity or answering any questions definitively, but it does at least give an opportunity to show them off in different scenarios.
Yeah, because, like, if that really was giving a primary answer, Cumber, the Cumber Saiyan would be, just his Super Saiyan 3 form would be stronger than both Vegetos, because the manga had, like, Super Saiyan 1 Cumber fight him, Vegito Blue, and then they timed out because of Kaioken. And then he was in Super Saiyan 3, and he was so powerful that Vegito and Super Saiyan 4 couldn't touch him, but then Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku appears, one-shots him, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's an escalation.
That, like, Ultra Instinct is kind of lumped into this, but Ultra Instinct's still relatively new compared to Blue. It also keeps getting, I think, it keeps getting retconned of what it's supposed to be. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and dabble through, like, thumb through the Moro and Granola arc just to see the text. But, like, people were talking about, like, one episode of Heroes that I love because it is so funny. It is the funniest episode you'll ever see. Blue gets this dark energy from a previous episode, and he gets, like, a cloak, and he makes, like, this weird room, and you have both Vegetos, Blue and 4 with the Limit Breaker 4, standing there, and they're saying generic one-liners, and then Broly, literally from, like, the left side, flies in, transforms into Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker, beats both of them, and then carries on with his day. It's like, what the So Broly with 4 is stronger than both versions of Goku. Two different Gokus and Vegetas fused. And I think, like, when that episode came out, it made so many people, like, so angry. Because it's like, it didn't solve the argument, it just, again, just kept pushing people to keep watching and waiting to see what happens. And I think we're currently on, like, this wild Super Saiyan Rose 3 Goku Black thing now, and it's like, what the? It's sensory overload with the forms, that's what it is.
A little bit, yeah. It's kind of hard to keep track of everything when they do throw it all together like that.
Yeah, and I regrettably have watched every episode of Heroes multiple times just to see, because there are people who will, like, they'll say, oh, this character said that Super Saiyan 4 right here was stronger, but then you'll go through the episode and there's no mention of it. And I think, I'm probably guilty of this too, just because I personally prefer Blue over 4. Mainly because it's more, I like Blue, but it's a simpler design, in my opinion. Like, I just prefer that shit. But people, like, some people, I'm pretty sure you've seen the Battles memes on Mario guy floating around Facebook.
Oh yeah.
I think the content he makes is mostly pro GT, but it's, like, so outlandish, and it, like, will, any one of his memes that has Super Saiyan 4 or Super Saiyan Blue on it will just, everyone, and I've even commented and had arguments, which I deeply regret because I was like, oh, I fell for the trap. They had basically, like, this really obnoxious comment section, and it was the GT fanboys, hardcore GT fanboys, like, anything past GT doesn't exist to them, the GT's the end of the series type fanboys. And you got the super fanboy, the super fanboys, and then the kids who got into Dragon Ball through Super. throwing shit cannons at each other, and it's like, damn, this is wild. And it's just like, just imagine like, whoever runs Dragon Ball Toei and shit. Like, I wonder how it's like in the East and Japan and stuff, like with other fan bases, because if we're still getting stuff in Heroes that acknowledges 4, gives 4 power-ups, gives Blue power-ups. Blue got like another power-up for Vegeta. They obviously want to keep pushing these forms, but it's like, when will it stop? Because it's not gonna, they're not gonna show up in Super. They're not gonna show up in the Super manga, to our knowledge. Knock on wood before something stupid happens.
As far as like different segments of the fandom arguing, I mean, that's kind of always really been a thing just in regards to, like, I mentioned at the beginning, but I think the biggest problem is mainly just because since GT is like, what, 17 years after the Buu saga, whereas Super's like, I don't know, 2 or 3, but they keep escalating the power to such a monumental degree, it's like, they're still gonna argue just in the case of how the characters get stronger, like when they plateau, what's considered a peak, what's considered like reasonable based on the norms that the respective series has set. And you know, you are right, a lot of kids have only gotten into Dragon Ball because of Super, or probably because of like Kai even, and that's still fairly recent to them. So you're definitely going to see a lot of different cases where, I almost hate to say it, but it kind of feels like GT's inherently in this kind of weird camp that a lot of midpoint spin-offs or side movies get in popular franchises, where like shortly after it came out, the internet basically told everyone that you need to hate it, so the people who didn't hate it felt like they need to defend it a little bit more vehemently than usual, and it just kind of creates that constant back and forth.
Yeah, cause like, let me get up a website real quick. It's a website I use when I want to buy Dragon Ball stuff. Wait, it's called Big Bad Toy Store, not sponsored. Sponsor us. No, I'm kidding. But okay, if you just like for marketing more, I don't like seeing My Hero shit in my face. Get that out of here. But on the Dragon Ball page, there's if it wants to load, there we go. If I just hit see all product, the first things I immediately see, I see like Goku Black, a backpack, but then you scroll down, you'll see Gogeta Blue, you'll see Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Vegito Gogeta Blue, Ultra Instinct Goku, a new GT figure for Goku, and all this stuff. And it's all pretty even. Like there's like a base GT Goku. Oh, never mind. It's a Super Saiyan one. And the thing is like most of them are sold out or in the process of being sold out because people are gonna buy it immediately. Like there's 4 Gogetas in the same pose, all with different shading. One's even monochrome, right? And it's Super Saiyan God, blah 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 blah. And I think they throw in all these extra acronyms and stuff to like make it seem larger than it is. So when you get to the actual series, like just the series with the characters, and you get the forms that you've been buying and seeing for years, I think people will deliberately side only for one form and then like try to justify them liking it more. And like GT for a long time on the internet was just hated, and I don't, just like my quick little opinion is GT's not the worst Dragon Ball show to exist. It's Dragon Ball Heroes, funnily enough, but it's not. I don't think it's necessarily unwatchable garbage, but it's also like not the best thing ever. Too, but the people who were like 10 or 13 watching GT when it came out are now old enough to want to see more of that particular part of it. So it spreads into the fan base into like this, like almost like a virus kind of, like where they'll start fights with all the other fans, trying to like make everybody change into one, and then the series as a whole notices this, and instead of releasing official statements or doing something for them to bite off of, they'll make something like the Heroes anime or the Heroes video game, or put Gogeta Super Saiyan 4 in Fighters, and then put in dialogue that just pours gasoline on this fucking fire, so that way all the money bubbles come up and they just keep grabbing it and keep selling the toys, selling the toys, selling the toys. It's kind of shitty. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, don't support Dragon Ball. I have a huge collection of Dragon Ball, but a part of me, like, in the back of my mind just notices, like, I kind of wish people would take a step back and realize, like, man, we're being marketed so hard that something as simple as just a different transformation, there are people who just hate them so much that they won't even accept the fact that someone else likes Dragon Ball because they like that other part of the series.
You know, I think it's interesting how you pointed out that, like, very specific merchandise will be sold out depending on what the character is or what the form is, because, I mean, you know, I was a little bit too young to frequently go shopping whenever they had, like, early to mid-2000s Dragon Ball merchandise available, but most of the ones I see available now at, like, general malls, you know, they pretty much all the content is based around, like, the main forms or hype moments from Super, and they do have a good handful going back to Z, like, namely just iconic images from the Frieza or the Android saga. There's not really anything based around, like, OGDB or GT at this point. I mean, if you walk into certain shops that might sell, I don't know, toys or models, then yeah, there's at least a chance they'll have, like, some Super Saiyan 4 models, but that's really about it.
Yeah, like, some of the Super Saiyan 4 models do. Well, I'm just gonna bookmark that, because that's funny enough, me talking about how the fan base is manipulating, the series is manipulating the fan base to buy toys, and I see Vegeta Blue doing a high kick, and I'm like, I like that. What's funny though is actually, speaking of Vegeta Blue, so I remember when Super Saiyan 4 Vegito debuted in Heroes, and there was an exclusive model released for it, and I actually bought it at the time because it was pretty cheap on pre-order. But now when I go through to look for that model, every time I've seen it, it's either sold out or it's being resold for like triple the price. And it's like, damn. Oh, that's not what I expected.
Scalpers will always get what they want, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, that's the real people who profited off Dragon Ball are the people who buy the merchandise but then sell it secondhand off like eBay and stuff. I've seen funnily enough, the Dragon Ball Heroes cards of Super Saiyan Blue 4. I've noticed, like, you'll get the Super Saiyan 4 cards with the new little rosish tint it has to be that new Limit Breaker form. And they're already hard to find because they don't get sold over here. But I'll see people who will, like, sell the cards for like hundreds of dollars, and it's like, what the hell? Because like, what I don't even know what use the cards have besides being like baseball cards, just collecting them. And it's they like sit here and know that this is Super Saiyan 4 Goku with a new form, and there's people who are going to flock to that, no matter the writing quality, no matter the quality of the episode, because they want to see it, and then they want you to keep talking about it to buy it. And it's like, yikes. Same with Super Saiyan Blue. There's so many Super Saiyan Blue. I barely see Super Saiyan figures that aren't like old Super Saiyan figures from like years ago that are just getting resold.
There's definitely a lot of people marketing just trying to see a character again. I mean, you know, how many times did the Atari or Namco games put Broly on the front cover because people wanted to see like another side story or missions with him, even if he wasn't like incredibly relevant at that point in time? Or like as soon as Beerus came out, they had what was the game that came right after him? I think Battle of Z. They definitely hyped him up as being like they marketed it to an absurd degree almost how prominent he would be in the game.
Yeah, right now I'm over here waiting for another King Cold model. But, you know what's funny? Broly's actually a great topic, because Broly's been reinvented into the canonical series. Same with Gogeta. Now Gogeta, you just had to make him fusion hands, but Broly, they basically built him from the ground up. He has different origin story, different design, and even his powers are a little different. And all this shit, right? Like he's got that weird rage form where he's not a Super Saiyan, and all that. And it's the Ozaru in his human form. And there's already people who pointed out that reminds them of Super Saiyan 4 and all this, and they're like, oh, it's gonna make Broly go Super Saiyan 4 later in the series, which I don't think is gonna happen, but who knows at this point. But then Gogeta, I remember when the trailers for Gogeta dropped, I'm pretty sure you saw it everywhere at nauseam, where people were just losing their mind that this character that already existed, like it's not like, because that's the thing, it's not like Broly was a new character, same with Gogeta for this movie. They were already existing characters. It's just that they're put into the new series. That's the main line series, the easy to digest series that Super is. And they gave Gogeta Blue and gave Broly this unbelievable power up from, I think, the second craziest being Frieza going gold and just getting so monstrously strong in such a short amount of time. But Broly, that he was just always that strong. They even have like lines where he's like, oh god, he's learning how he fights. And then in Heroes, they gave Broly Super Saiyan 4, like multiple versions of it too. Like, if you look up like Dark Super Saiyan 4 Broly, which I think is a thing, he's got like, yeah, there it is. He's got this darker fur, darker skin tone, but he's got like a Dragon Ball in the center of his chest that's like has this pulsating thing across it. And what's weird too is I've actually seen people talk about like how they wanted to see this version of Broly make it into Super. Now let's be glad that it wasn't just the original old Broly making it into Super, because that would have been a headcanon nightmare.
Oh yeah.
Everyone. Oh yeah, that would have been terrible.
What I think it's interesting is that Broly was kind of a large point that Toei could use in marketing with like 4 and Blue in some cases, because even though he never really reached those forms himself outside of just Heroes, you know, they were always have like the games hyping him up as being a major opponent for Super Saiyan 4. They would always kind of throw him into like, well, I can't say always, but periodically they would try to throw him into like End of Z or GT storylines in some of the games. And, you know, when they decided to bring him back, they had him fighting Super Saiyan Blue in the movie. And I think even the Xenoverse 1, he was like the last part of the main story. And that mission was kind of weird and haphazard because it wasn't like the End of Z, it was just a mishmash of characters.
God, I know what you're talking about too. Like Xenoverse 2, Xenoverse 1, because at the end of Xenoverse 1's lifespan, I think Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue came out as DLC. I know Super Saiyan Blue was DLC for sure, and Super Saiyan Blue was so strong in Xenoverse with this special soul of his that like it like broke the game. Like they didn't even like try to rebalance it; it just destroyed the game balance. But in Xenoverse 2, there's a lot of missions where you'll have Broly. I mostly Z Broly because the new Broly was definitely DLC for Xenoverse 1. But there'll be DLC missions or alternative quests where they'll deliberately use characters like Broly or Baby or Gogeta. Baby was DLC, my bad. But Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and stuff to fight against like Blue Goku, this and that, and they'll have like this big grandiose title for the mission. But then when that one parallel mission came out in the post game where it's Super Saiyan 4 gets replaced by Blue, I have actually seen people like debate why wasn't it Super Saiyan 4 to begin with for the new series. And I think the main reason for that is just probably Akira Toriyama wanting to design a new form.
That is most likely true. But yeah, you do have a point with how Super Saiyan Blue did kind of break Xenoverse a little bit, because it's like, if I remember correctly, the base game came out around the time Revival of Frieza was like announced, when we knew at least what the plot of that movie would be. Then it had the GT DLC, which was a little bit before ROF came out, or around the time maybe it hit Japanese theaters. And then I know that the Revival of Frieza DLC coincided with like the home release of the movie.
I remember being mad that the GT storyline in Xenoverse 1 was DLC. That's a different thing, but I remember being mad about that. But like, yeah, Xenoverse 1, it's weird. Xenoverse 1 was not that great of a game when you look back on it either. I think the main selling point was that you could build your own character, so that covered up the flaws for a lot of people. Because Xenoverse 2 was just a significantly better experience and better game. Like, ignore the 13 plus DLC Xenoverse 1 has had now for it, but there's just so much to do with that, and they even have mission descriptions that just fuel this whole which form is stronger in the post game again. And there's even ones, normal missions, where it's like you have to play like GT Kid Goku, or like with him and as your ally, and you'll be fighting an array of Dragon Ball Z and super villains. And it's like, what the hell? Because it's like supposed to covered by this timeline shenanigan, but it's like supposed to show that GT Goku can also fight with your character against like super strongest people at times. And I'm like, what does this mean?
Yeah, if I remember right, I think the ending of, or like one of the last missions in the GT DLC for Xenoverse 1, it was like the GT villains, so Grade 8 Baby, Super 17, and Omega Shenron, they had like that villainous energy in them, and the Goku and Vegeta had to fight, and Time Cop Trunks had to fight along with your custom character. So they just automatically kind of threw everything together, and it's like, here, go nuts, do what you gotta do.
Time Cop Trunks. I know it's Time Patrol, but Time Cop Trunks sounds way better.
It's easier to say anyway.
I also like that Trunks is another character of Saiyan marketing. Like, oh my gosh, I just realized I think they use Future Trunks and Future Gohan, mostly Future Trunks and alternate timeline Bardock as frequently as they can. Like the entire Goku Black arc is, for Trunks, and he even gets one of the worst endings you could have ever written into a series, just so Trunks gets this big heroic win against Zamasu. Like Vegito Blue gets shafted and written out in the same arc he's introduced, so they can market Trunks. And Trunks, I think, I remember, especially in the anime, he was fueling that whole debate of why do we need these god forms, these lazy, as people like, they'll throw on like lazy or I could make a better, and I hate hearing that. Because if you look up a fan Super Saiyan form, you're gonna find something cringe that you're gonna put bleach in your eyes for. But Trunks, he had how many power-ups in that arc? Like 4. He had he could fight Zamasu and Goku Black in his normal Super Saiyan 2 stage, and then he gets the weird white eye form with the blue aura, and I have no idea what that form is supposed to represent or even mean. Ugh. I kind of miss, I do miss when it was just Super Saiyan 3. That was the top with the 2 fusions. Because it was definitely simpler to be around for Dragon Ball. But the new stuff, all the new stuff, including, GT being new, in quotes, all the forms after that, they're not, I don't think any of them are inherently terrible. I think it's more along the lines of how vague they leave it, and do so just because it keeps us talking about them and keeps people wanting to see them more and more.
Pretty definitely, I can agree with that, and I think that, I do agree that Trunks, what they overall did in order to just make his story end in Super, was, it pretty much defeats the whole purpose of, like, his good ending in the Cell Saga, and it does radically alter his power capabilities. Like, sure, it's not unrealistic to say that after he defeated Cell, he still trained for another threat and probably got a lot stronger, but, like, the anime... I might be getting this reversed. Like, in the anime, when he first comes back to the past, he's training with, like, Super Saiyan 2 or 3 Goku, and in the manga, I think he was actually training against Red God Form Goku, and then it's just, they give him the weird power-ups, they have to market kinda what he's able to do. Like, he's not aware of God Energy, he's never really had that level of training, but they give him the form just so he can sorta hold Goku Black off and do something to move the plot along in the way they want it to.
Yeah, man. I almost completely forgot about how badly they marketed Trunks. Like, just because, you know, I'm surprised Trunks didn't have, like, Super Saiyan 3 and shit, too, for Super. Which is weird, because, like, I know Super Saiyan 3 is... It's popular for its moment in Z, mostly, for like the initial reveal of Super Saiyan 3, I think is its most popular scene. But it's used in GT really hard, right? And it's like, oh, Goku's kid body can't handle Super Saiyan 3, so they push it to Super Saiyan 4. But like after that, I don't think you really see Super Saiyan 3 often. Like I think Super Saiyan 3 just gets forgotten when you talk about 4 or Super Saiyan Blue or Super Saiyan God. Same with Super Saiyan God, that gets dropped off for Blue as well, but Super Saiyan 3, like, it just gets overshadowed so quickly that a lot of characters, I think Goku's, like, Goku, Cumber, and Heroes and Gotenks, I think in one of the other Dragon Ball games, Broly, are, like, the only main characters that use it, and they just use it to quickly, like, just sell the power-up, not because there was, like, any reasoning for it. Oh, poor Super Saiyan 3, man. Poor Super Saiyan 3.
Yeah, 3 is actually weirdly underutilized, and I don't know, maybe that's just because they don't like wasting the resources on creating the extra hair, but they really did not use it to any large extent. I mean, okay, Buu Saga and the following movies, Fusion Reborn and Tarudagarn, yeah, it's used there perfectly fine, because those flow into it. And then when GT comes around, okay, this is like over a decade later, so we gotta raise the stakes and be like, you know, whatever we're fighting now, that's leagues beyond even Kid Buu, so they need a form that surpasses Super Saiyan 3. Sure, whatever, but they barely even used it in the early stages of GT, because whenever Goku was out in space, he really just went Super Saiyan 1 against most of his opponents anyway.
Yeah, that was weird, like, because for a while GT, Goku only, maybe you could argue with Super Saiyan 2, probably not. Goku, like, for a while in GT only used Super Saiyan 1, and I think he used Super Saiyan 3 on a few occasions, I think against Baby, I'll look back, but, it's like, when Super Saiyan 4 came out in GT, I think it became the primary form that was used. Like, I actually even think they have fights based around just trying to make Goku go Super Saiyan 4, because no fight would have any level of tension unless he's in Super Saiyan 4. Like, Super 17, they even had to write around making Goku fight like a gorilla, blasting him with energy beams to power him up enough for Super Saiyan 4 to be used. Oh, jeez.
You know, I do think that they really should have had something at the very beginning of the Black Star Ball arc talking about how Super Saiyan 3 was unviable for him, because he does use it against when Baby possesses Vegeta on Earth, like the first time or two they fight before he gets to Super Saiyan 4. And, you know, he definitely needed to use it there just to even hope of damaging him with how much power he had gotten at that point, but... like, who were his real opponents before that point? It was like... I might be forgetting somebody, because there's a lot of kind of samey episodes in the Black Star Ball saga, but the only real major fights he had were, I think, Legic, that mercenary guy, General Rildo, and there's like some weird kind of marionette-looking robot I think they had to fight at one point. I'm pretty sure those are the only real fights they had before actually getting up to Dr. Mew and seeing Baby being born. So if he would have just started with, like, okay, this Legic guy looks pretty strong, I'm gonna beat him quickly. What? I can't reach level 3. Oh, maybe it's because I shrunk. I think that would have at least gotten the point along better as to why he's not using it, or doesn't need to. I guess in a way you could kind of argue, though, that, like, only seeing him at level 1 or 2, and then still not being able to beat Baby at level 3 shows that he really is, like, Baby, it really is a lot stronger, but since Goku attested that he couldn't control the form at that point, you know, that's more just a case of he doesn't know what he's doing, and not necessarily this guy is so many leagues above me.
Yeah, and one thing for Super Saiyan Blue, I think Super Saiyan Blue still has a lot of confusion around it. Maybe not as much anymore. I know Super Saiyan 4 does, because there's people who... Again, it has an unconfirmable player. It's just stronger than Super Saiyan 3. How much stronger, who knows, and all that. But Super Saiyan Blue, dude, I remember... Do you remember the nightmare of Super Saiyan God for Super Saiyan Blue? Which one was stronger? Like, just in itself? And we got confirmation for that. Like, thank goodness, but how much stronger Super Saiyan Blue compared to Super Saiyan God is
yes,
very,
I know that, like, right when the Revival of Frieza movie came out, there was, like, some chart that was making statements about how, Now, logically, this would make sense the way they explained it, but they didn't put much more thought into it than that. They said because Red God requires a ritual and Blue God doesn't, Red should be stronger, which theoretically would make sense, but there were several lines of dialogue in Revival of Frieza that pretty heavily implied. I can't say they directly stated, but they made it definitely sound like the blue form was stronger, and people were still arguing about it. So then, who were they fighting? It was in the Tournament of Power, I think when they were fighting Dispo, like that episode where he was making Hit look like a chump. Goku just outright says, sometimes I hold my energy back by going to red, but I go all out in form blue. So they pretty much waited a long while to say that, just for the sake of, I don't know, I guess seeing how people would interpret the red form or think that it could still be useful.
I think... Yeah, I remember that. I think the Goku Black Arc manga also did that. But they like... People love talking about practicality of the forms, you know, they're like... one thing that Super Saiyan 4, I think, has... I don't know if it was just a one-off, but, like, it has, like, these added powers that don't make a lot of sense. Like, this idea, like, oh, Goku could never power out of the form, but then multiple times in GT, he either powers out of the form, or he gets knocked out of Super Saiyan 4, and it's like, what? And then, like, for Super Saiyan Blue, they're like, oh, it's taxing on their stamina, but then later on, they'll be using Super Saiyan Blue at such frequency that it's like, okay, there's no way this is still a problem that these characters have. And it's because they're trying to, like, you know, make the forms look as big and bad as possible, but then still not pull any wins somehow, unless you're Ice Shenron, then you just get shit on. But, you know, poor Ice Shenron. I actually hated that fight because it's like, it was just a one-sided domination. And in Dragon Ball, those are pretty lame at times, but that's a different topic.
They definitely can be lame. I think that one was kind of okay, just because, I mean, the fact that Ice was, like, trying to do the cheap shot shenanigans, that at least was something, and he got karma for it almost instantly. As far as how the forms do run out of power very quickly, that didn't really seem to be... Well, okay, no, I can't say that. It was an issue in GT. Like, at first, the first time he reached level 4, he couldn't really control it all the way, so he still needed to get a little better. Yeah, perfectly reasonable. And then after Super 17 absorbed a lot of energy, and Goku just couldn't hold the form any longer, he was taking too much damage. Again, reasonable. He didn't really use it against any of the Shenrons, or at least, like, half the Shenrons. He only really went up to, like, level 1. It was only, I think, after Pan got absorbed, and then Nova, Ice, and Sin to Omega. that was when he really started taking it seriously. And because he fought Nova, Ice, Sin, and Omega in such rapid succession, the whole main point of that was, like, he didn't even have enough strength to do the fusion anymore. His body just completely burnt through its energy, which that's pretty reasonable. He was fighting a lot in a short amount of time, even though he was given energy to try and help him out. With the blue forms, especially in the Tournament of Power, the problem with that is they had to write the tournament in such a way that individual episodes felt like a conflict, but it was an entire season that was supposed to happen in the span of like 45 or 50 to 50 minutes in realistic time, and that just doesn't happen. And I've recently seen... I think the fans are kind of good about this, and we can go over some other topics like this in the future. It would take too long now, but I know that people have done fan edits of the Tournament of Power where they try to condense it into just like a 2 to 3 hour movie and condense the content pretty substantially. So you'll see characters get eliminated a lot faster. It shortens the fight scenes to some of the cliff notes. Like, for instance, I think the most prominent one I've seen was immediately after Vegeta knocks out Toppo, he falls out of the ring himself, because the way they do it in the main episodes, it's like, oh, I burnt all my energy fighting this god. Oh, hey, Jiren, hang on, let me power up a second again. So,
Yeah, oh my
they
goodness,
really do have to work all that out, and just in order to make it flow right, they kind of have to abandon the ideas of fatigue based on what's more cinematic at that point in time.
Yeah, that's such a thing too, because like there are really cool shots in both GT and Super with. What did I just? Excuse me. There are really cool moments and shots in both shows where 4 and Blue look amazing. Hell, even in Heroes, one of the coolest scenes, for my opinion, is when both Super Saiyan 4 and Blue Goku are fighting Janemba. Because that's something, you don't... I wish that happened more to kind of just bury this whole argument. But instead, we kind of get the opposite, where they'll power both forms up constantly, and then in the games, they'll keep teasing it, so that way, it keeps just being this cancerous problem for like a large part of the fan base, for the people who, because a lot of people care about this. If they released anything confirming one over the other, I don't know if I'd be mad. I think maybe I would a little bit, for just on the time it took to be released, because Super is still ongoing, so it's probably gonna keep being a problem. And if they incorporate any form of Super Saiyan 4 into Super, oh lord, imagine we revisit Universe 6 and Caulifla and Kaba are like Super Saiyan 4s. I think people would lose their mind, because it's with 2 unpopular characters.
That's actually a very interesting idea, though, and that is, should, like, the separate universes have transformations unique to them? That, I don't know if they'd go with 4 exactly, because it doesn't really seem like the U6 Saiyans have the primal aspect that the original Saiyans did, and I do think that that's one thing. Most everybody will say this, and I do largely agree with it to an extent, is that 4 kind of looks like the most natural evolution of the Saiyan line, because they're supposed to turn into big monkeys. Although, I guess you could also argue that it doesn't make sense that the original Super Saiyan and 2 don't look that way, and heck, if they just keep gaining more hair as they go along, I don't know, Super Saiyan 6 would be like a porcupine or something, but it would be an interesting idea to actually see how the other Saiyans or other universes can have different transformations and, like, make that some kind of a bridge point.
Yeah, maybe, like, because, think about it, they did compromise with Broly. So is it out of the realm of possibility that Super Saiyan 4 be put into Super? Not now, but I don't think it'd be a form Goku and Vegeta have. If it was and ended up being stronger than the pre-existing forms, it'd probably be completely reinvented. It wouldn't be Super Saiyan 4, and that actually could make people angry as well, because I know there are people who really care about the Super Saiyan 4 from GT in particular and we're mostly talking about Super Saiyan 4 Goku, because unfortunately for Vegeta, his Super Saiyan 4 doesn't nearly matter as much, because Goku had such a dominant spotlight with it. But man, dude, we had a lot more to talk about than I thought on this topic. Whew.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, look, they do market these forms quite a lot, and actually, I did have a thought a little while ago, and I wonder how marketing for this went in Japan when this was happening. I assume not nearly as severe because everything was in more rapid succession, but I want to think back to the Android saga, because, you know, before that point, the whole idea that Vegeta was emphasizing ever since he was first introduced was the legend of the Super Saiyan, and so, you know, some people have said that he meant to end it there, some people have said he doesn't. The idea of Goku reaching Super Saiyan 1 on Namek was supposed to be like the pivotal transformation moment, and then as they had to introduce a new threat, not only did they have to make it seem like the Super Saiyan couldn't take it, they also had to say multiple Super Saiyans couldn't take it. So, as the Android saga was progressing, they had to come up with, like, different subsets of the form. Well, so when Vegeta and Trunks each got out of the time chamber, Vegeta had... I don't know if they have different names in Japan. I'm just going to go off what I think is they're referred to. Like, Vegeta was an ascended form where he used a higher level of strength, but he didn't really sacrifice speed for it. Whereas Trunks, he went to an Ultra state where his strength was significantly higher, but he had to sacrifice speed to doing so. Meanwhile, Goku had arguably the best option at that point, where he mastered, like, the base Super Saiyan form so that it used the least restrictive amount of energy possible. So that's basically 3 branching paths to try and get different results. And then none of them ended up being enough to take Cell on their own. So that's when Gohan, who had also mastered Super Saiyan in the same way Goku did, he reached that point of insanity and rage where he got to level 2. And I actually think that if that was like a level that only half Saiyans could have reached, that actually could have been another marketing point in of itself, just because it's like, the whole idea was Saiyans could reach higher levels of power when they're enraged, but normally they don't get that way. It's only Gohan and, to a certain extent, Trunks, because they have more human emotions. So, like, it could have been implicit that after Trunks went back to the future, he learned that himself, too, out of necessity. And if they would have done it that way, I'm sure that they had different ways of marketing the different forms back then, but it's just a matter of how rapid they came after each other. And I don't really know, per se... What I'm trying to get at is mainly they have been marketing forms for a long while, I think, and whether or not they're going to keep doing so largely depends on how well they're able to make each form viable. So by constantly having little micro debates where they can make somebody level 4 or into blue or get an ascended stage, they can keep making these forms viable because they never give a definitive answer.
yeah, that's a lot to take in right there, because I never I didn't really notice that with the greater forms, because like I think Gohan did, yeah, that's right, because it was like at the time it was just the Super Saiyan barrier that they called it, like there was like a plateau of power, and Gohan was the one who like got all the power, but then didn't sacrifice speed. Like, he increased his speed, so he was now that's why he was defeating Cell. Then the Buu saga, it just became Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3. Then GT with 4. And 4, it's the one that I see the most right now next to Blue online. And I think it's mostly because people are so passionate about 4 and everything with it. It's very interesting that it's still around, because I actually thought, a part of me thought, looking back, that 4 would have just fallen to obscurity, but I think that's because of Heroes. I think Heroes and the recent promotional anime too for the general public is why 4 gets clinged on so hard, and then you get the Gogeta and Fighter Z with Super Saiyan 4 and all that. Because like in Xenoverse, Super Saiyan 4 isn't really that special. It's a preset character, but it's like doesn't. I don't think it had like any particular different buffs compared to the other Super Saiyan forms, where like Super Saiyan God Goku gained stamina faster and Blue Goku gained stamina faster and had I think these other qualities for like Kaioken Blue and stuff. But Super Saiyan 4, like in those games, just they feel like such an afterthought. And then lately, lately they've just been throwing 4 a bone more and more with each passing card or toy or this. But I think because I unfortunately have to start going again because of something. So I think to wrap up my end of this is I think for as long as Super's out with Heroes, I think it's safe to say we're gonna see Super Saiyan 4 and Blue just get wackier as time goes on until something official comes out for them.
I agree with that, and I'll keep my point short too, so we can wrap this up. But you're right; we did go a while without Super Saiyan 4. Like after Tenkaichi 3, there was a significant gaps in games before we got any Super Saiyan 4 content. Unless I'm forgetting something, it really wasn't until the first Xenoverse where they came back, and that was probably because the Heroes games were showing a success in people wanting to see that form again. So, there is an interest for it. I can understand why, but whether or not we're going to see enough of it in the future, or if it will ever be fully introduced into the canon of Super, I don't think it's likely per se, but you never know.
Uh, yeah, there's a. th- I'm just surprised it still has such a developed fan base, and that's probably because the people who are kids watching GT are old enough to have internet and opinions. How dare they? But I think we'll go a little more in depth on this next time because there's a few more things I want to talk about, which I'll spoil a little bit. And it's actually about the fusion characters, uh, Gogeta, Vegito, Kefla, and Zamasu primarily. I guess Gotenks too, because there's 3 people in the world who like him. But overall, I gotta get going. Uh, Thanks for your time, man, and I will see you next time.
Of course, thank you, and thank all of you for watching. So this has been Kings and Generals episode 3, and we will see you all later. Have a good night, everybody.